Just going to show you a few examples of the beads I've made before we start making them. So these are quilted in the middle and hand stitched around the outside, and I used a knitting needle as my gauge. So you can just see those threaded onto the knitting needle, and that it's quite handy to have a knitting needle because it helps you get the sizes of the gauge more even when you come to thread them. So for the inner part of the bead, I'm going to use a little bit of cot blanket that I found this in a charity shop, and it's been useful for a variety of projects. And this is just a little bit of scrap fabric that I found in my basket. What I do first of all is measure the gauge of the bead by wrapping the quilted bit around the outside. I'm using a knitting needle here, but you can use a pen or anything else that's a similar gauge or the gauge that you want. And as you can see, what I've done, I've wrapped that around this knitting needle, and I'm just going to snip it, the excess off like so, and then you can just see it's not tight, but it's snug. So next what I need to do is cover the inner part of the bead with the outer fabric. Now what you could do is just pin that down. If you're a competent sewer, then you'll find that really easy, but if not, I recommend just applying a little bit of a glue. I've just got a standard glue stick here along your fabric, sticking the bead on like that, and then we just need a little bit of an overhang. Oops. I'm just going to cut maybe about ½ an inch at one end and the other. And then along the edge of the bead, I'm going to cut right up to the edge like that. Out of the way. And then fold over the ends, and the glue just holds it in place temporarily. I wouldn't recommend that you replace gluing with sewing though. So what I'm going to show you is how to decorate the outside of your bead. I've chosen some red embroidery cotton here, or flossers it's known as in America. And what I'm going to do is do a pattern onto the bead. I think I'd quite like to do a star today. There's all sorts you could do. You could do some really intricate embroidery on this if you wanted to, if you've got a little bit more time, or you could stitch a small bead onto it as well. There's lots of possibilities of what you could do. If you've got a more decorative fabric, you might not want to embroider anything onto it because it will get lost. You won't see the handiwork. So I've done a star shape here. Quite happy with that. I'm just going to wrap it around there to see what it might look like as a bead. Yep, that looks quite nice. I'll just finish that off at the back. The nice thing about the quilted part is that you can tie your knots off really tightly underneath and they won't come undone. So next what I'm going to show you is how to stitch this together and to make that a bead shape. So now that I've partly decorated the outside of the bead, what I'm going to do now is start shaping it by wrapping it back around my knitting needle and just getting a couple of pins to hold it together. And what I'm going to do is start stitching these two edges together. So I'm just going to go underneath to start with so that we can hide that knot inside, and then start stitching across. I'm just doing an over stitch here, and I've chosen a cotton colour that's very close to the fabric that I'm using. I'll just take that one out there. I've got the windows of my studio open because it's a very hot summer's day, so I've come out here early before it gets too hot, so you'll hear all the birds outside. So here we are at the end, one last stitch, and then I'll just do a knot to finish that off. So rather than cut it there right next to the knot and risk it coming undone, I'm just going to thread the needle through and then just give it a little tug and snip that with my scissors there, and then the tail end will drop inside and it's not then up close to the knot that I made. Now if I just slide that off, you should be able to see down the middle of the bead. So next what I'm going to do is decorate the edge, because I think the edges look a little bit rough at the minute. So I'm going to put some stitches around the outside. There we have one completed bead.